Welcome back to Andersen Acres. It is cold and gooey. That's what it is. It's cold and gooey today. Cold and completely gooey. And they flipped over my chair, so they're buttheads. But we are out here with shadow facts today because I had some questions when I posted my deworming video. Keeping your horse, limiting the amount of worms he sheds and stuff like that. I had some questions. I thought I would answer them. So, follow up. Chicken. So, best way, here's one of the questions. Best way to prevent that worm overload. Worm overlords. That's where we are at this point. Anyway, yeah. So you will notice that we have to clean the pen right here because this is the corner where he poops. So when you are trying to control worm overload, okay, because they all have parasites, they all have worms. It doesn't matter, they do. So when you're trying to control it, you want to clean these pens, and we are about to scrape this down because this is his pooping corner. I don't like that it's right near the gate, but it is what it is. Like, there's no poop over there because that's not the pooping corner. This is the pooping corner. But whatever. So we are going to scrape this out and remove all this poop. Okay, this isn't a ton of poop, obviously. He's a little horse. He doesn't poop that much. But we want to remove it because if you remove the poop, that's where the worms are, by the way. That's where the worm eggs are. They're in the poops. So if you remove them, you are minimizing exposure to those worm eggs. The other thing you want to do, new horses. If you bring a new horse onto your property, quarantine for 30 days. Get a fecal done. If you need to deworm that horse and then do another fecal in 2 weeks to make sure that you are effectively treating the worms. You want to do that. You want to make sure you are effectively treating the worms. So quarantine the pony, get a fecal done, and then you need to treat, okay, before introducing him to your herd. The thing you don't want to do is introduce a horse to your herd when you haven't properly assessed that horse and properly quarantined that horse. So do that. Remember that different herds have different parasites. So the horse you bring in might end up, very likely could end up, bringing in a parasite that you are not familiar with or that your horses are not familiar with. So absolutely quarantine and double check. Also remember that the warmer your area is, the more different types of parasites you will have. We get really, really cold winters. So at this point, everything is frozen solid at night. So that minimizes how often your, sorry, I'm backing up so I can get a better shot of him, and I'm backing up on a hill. So I don't want to fall. There we go. But if you live in a warm area, you're going to have more parasites. It's frozen solid here at night now. Okay? Every night. It's well below freezing. It's cold here. So we don't have necessarily that same type of problem because everything's frozen solid. So the worm eggs and stuff get frozen solid. But if you live in a warm area where that doesn't happen, you're going to have a longer parasite season. You're going to have more different types of parasites that could be deadly. You just have to be on top of it more. So your climate really does matter. Somebody asked me about natural products for deworming. Here's where I'm going to make people mad. I'm sorry in advance. But there is no evidence beyond anecdotal that things like DE, garlic, pumpkin seeds, or a bunch of herbs do a darn thing to help reduce the worm load in your pony. There is some slight evidence that pumpkin seeds might help, but your horse would have to eat so many that it just isn't feasible. When it comes to DE, diatomaceous earth, I love it. You probably have seen when I'm filming the cats, you've probably seen a bag of it in my garage, and that's all fine, but it's good at what it does, not at what it doesn't do, okay? It does its thing. It's one thing that it does. Look how fuzzy he is. But it does the one thing it does very well. Okay? And that one thing it does is dry things out. So it's really good for bugs. Okay? It's really, really good for bugs on the outside, like on my garden. That's where I typically use it. Hi, DK. But it's very good for that kind of thing, because in my garden I can throw it in and it dehydrates the nasty little bugs that are all over my garden, and it doesn't harm the animals because it's animal safe, because we use a food grade version. It does its job really, really well. But its job is definitely not, under any circumstances, deworming your horse. As soon as it gets wet, it's useless, and it gets wet when they eat it. So it's not going to hurt them, but it's also not going to work. So if you want something that works, DE is not it, not for deworming. I'm going to go bother the cat. Other things that people try, garlic. Remember that in high quantities, garlic is toxic. And in order to get a high enough quantity, in order to have any effect of it as a dewormer, you are moving into toxic levels for your pony. Because mini horses are small. So garlic's not going to work. Again, pumpkin seeds, you would have to consume too many of them for it to make a difference. Okay, you'd have to just consume far too many. That doesn't work either. So if you do choose to go with natural products, now I'm all for avoiding chemicals in my animals. I don't like treating without a reason. That's why I am such a big proponent of doing things like fecals and stuff, because then I can treat exactly what is wrong and not necessarily just kind of blanket treat. I like to target treat, because then I'm introducing fewer chemicals and more chance of success first go round. So I am all for less chemicals in our animals and in our humans. However, there's no evidence that these other things work. So if you are going to try to use them, you want to run it by your vet first. You want to have fecals checked before you start, and have fecals checked after you start. Okay, a couple weeks after, to see if you're having any effect at all. Because you're going to have to run fecals a lot in order to use natural products, just because they're not the same strength. They don't do the same things. You're going to have to double check that things are working in order to maintain the healthier mini horse. And we do not want to risk the health of our mini horses. We love them to pieces. They're sweeties. They're a part of our family. So if you are going to use natural products, please make sure your vet is running fecals more often than they would otherwise, just because you want to keep on top of it, and make sure you know when to abandon the natural products and jump over into using something a little more effective, a little stronger. So just be aware of that. And I know that's going to make some people mad, because some people don't want to use the chemical. There's a cat running away from a chicken over there. But some people do not want to use the chemical dewormers. Remember, everything's a chemical. Use what works. It's for the health of your animal. It is better than losing someone or having someone get very sick because you didn't treat properly. But sorry if that made you mad. But that is about it for us here today at Andersen Acres. We'll see you tomorrow.